Have you guys heard about the play The Glass Menagerie by the playwright Tennessee Williams? Well, our group will discuss it for you, so you listen carefully and enjoy. Before discussing the play, let us first know the playwright of The Glass Menagerie. On March 26, 1911, Thomas Lanier Williams III was born in Columbus, Mississippi. Thomas Lanier William III, or Tennessee Williams, was a leading playwright of his age. That was during the post-World War II. He had won prestigious awards such as Pulitzer Prize and New York's Drama Critics Awards. His works seemed to be preoccupied with extremes of human brutality and sexual behavior, madness, rape, incest, nymphomania, violence, and deaths. He died on February 25, 1983, at the age of 71. The Glass Menagerie was published in 1944 by Tennessee Williams. It is a memory play and its action is drawn from the memories of the narrator. Tom Wingfield tells the story from his present, the 1940s, about his life in the 1930s. The play revolves around the escapist Tom, who is responsible to look after his crippled sister and nagging mother. The play is set against the background of depression, where the characters struggle with the past, the future, and with each other.
The Glass Menagerie by Tennessee Williams. The Glass Menagerie is an American classic that tells a tragic family tale of the love, bitterness, and abandonment. But beyond its delicate glass, unicorn, and heartbreaking drama, this Tennessee Williams play to prove to be a defining moment for the author and for the theater history.
Good day everybody, I am Christopher Simayan, and in this part I'm going to present the characters and the settings of the story The Glass Menagerie by Tennessee Williams. So first let us go through the characters. First entry is Amanda Wingfield. Amanda Wingfield is Laura and Tom's mother. She is a proud, vivacious woman who clings fervently to memories of a vanished Oriental past, simultaneously admirable, charming, and pitiable, and laughable. Amanda Wingfield is a very positive woman. She's also a loving and caring mother to Laura. So she's also responsible for Laura being sent to business college in a purpose of looking for a suitable husband for Laura, because she believes that marriage is the only solution for Laura's situation, because Laura is a crippled woman. Although sending Laura to business college is a fail, but Amanda is still hopeful that there will be gentle colors for Laura, and she keeps on searching for suitors for Laura. So next character is Laura Wingfield is Amanda's daughter and Tom's older sister. Laura has a bad leg on which she has to wear a brace and walk with a limp. 23 years old and painfully shy, she has largely withdrawn herself from the outside world and devotes her time to old records and her collection of glass figurines. So Laura Wingfield has some sort of like a physical disability where her legs are not equal in length, and that obliges her to wear braces, and whenever she walks she keeps on limping, and maybe that is the reason why she withdraw herself from socialization, like she restrained herself from talking to other people, and now she chooses to engage herself alone collecting animal figurines, or like animal glass menageries. Tom Wingfield, so he is Amanda's son and Laura's younger brother. He is an aspiring poet. He works at a shoe warehouse to support the family. He is frustrated by the numbing routine of his job and escapes from it through movies, literature, and alcohol. And also, he left his family behind just to pursue his ambition. Tom Wingfield is a drunkard person, because whenever he has problems, he throws his thought to alcoholism. And also, he's a selfish person, because although he is a breadwinner, because he supports his family, still he chooses to leave them behind and follow his ambitions for personal gain without thinking about his family. So next character is Jim O'Connor, an old acquaintance of Tom, Laura's ultimate crush, and also popular athlete in high school. A shipping clerk at a shoe warehouse in which Tom works, he is unwaveringly devoted to goals of professional achievement and ideals of personal success. So Jim O'Connor is a colleague of Tom, and also He is the ultimate crush of Laura back in high school. So the night that Jim visited the Winfields, so they got so close together, and like yeah, Laura fell for him, and without knowing that Jim O'Connor is already engaged, and that breaks Laura a lot. Next character is Mr. Wingfield. Mr. Wingfield is Amanda's husband and Laura and Tom's father. He is described as a handsome man who worked for a telephone company, and also he abandoned his family years before the action of the play and never reappears on stage. His picture is prominently displayed in the Wingfield's living room. Mr. Wingfield is affiliated to Amanda's family, but he is already in the past because he abandoned his family long, long before. And actually, he does not appear in any scene in the play, and he can only be seen in the living room, his picture hanging on the wall in the Wingfield's apartment. So now that's all the characters. Now let's proceed to the settings. So in the play, in the story, there are only two settings, and this includes first setting is the Wingfield apartment in Street Louis, 1937. So this is where the three Wingfields live. This apartment over here, and also this is the setting where most of the scenes, most of the events took place. And over here is the fire escape where Tom took his trail to leave his family behind. Okay, next setting is the Continental Shoemaker's warehouse. So this setting is where Tom and Jim's work. So this is the workplace of Tom. Also, this is the workplace where Tom got fired not long after Jim O'Connor visited his family.
In scene 1 of The Glass Menagerie, Tom, the one who plays as the narrator, walks toward the fire escape leading to the door of his family's apartment. He gives a short summary of national and international events, the Spanish Civil War, and labor unrest throughout American cities. He lets the audience know that he is the narrator of the play as well as the character Tom, and that the situations depicted are from his memory. Then he introduces the other rules: Amanda, his mother, and Laura, his sister. A fifth absent character, who is Amanda's husband and Tom's and Laura's father, has greatly affected the family situation despite not appearing. His large picture is on the wall, but he himself never actually shows up. Tom describes his father's absence as the result of his being a telephone employee who fell in love with a long distance and abandoned the family. Tom then walks toward the open apartment door as his mother is calling his name. During dinner, Amanda, an outspoken talker, badgers Tom about manners of chewing properly and decorum. Tom gets irritated and leaves the table standing near the living room, smoking. Amanda reiterates her frequently told and retold story about her gentleman callers when she was a young Southern belle. When she urges her daughter Laura to get ready for her own gentleman callers, Laura states, "There won't be any because she's not popular like you were in Blue Mountain." Tom groans and Laura tells her brother that Amanda fears Laura will never marry and will end up being an old maid. In scene 1, Tennessee Williams creates a vivid impressions of the three main characters of The Glass Menagerie. But Tom clues reader in other contexts of the time. The Spanish Civil War was a conflict between conservative nationalists leading toward fascism and the socialist republicans, the standing government that attracted worldwide attention. As for their characters and situations, Amanda cannot stop knocking and correcting. Tom, tired of her nitpicking and stories of the past, may be near his breaking point, for his anger and frustrations are palpable. Placid, highly introverted Laura tries to mediate. Amanda chooses to live in the past and act like the Southern belle she was before she married a man who deserted her and their children, seemingly far removed from the contemporary world. The past is the place where she feels safe and comfortable. Laura and Tom have their own illusionary worlds. Laura is her glass menagerie, and Tom's is the movies.
In scene 2 of The Glass Menagerie, Amanda tells Laura that she visited Laura's business college and now knows that she has been lying to her. But Laura explains that on the day she was supposed to take her first speed test typing, she became sick and threw up on the floor. Amanda whines to her daughter about her terror of what will happen to the two of them if Laura remains untrained for work, and that the only alternative is marriage. Then Laura tells her mother about Jim, her high school crush, who used to call her blue roses as a mishearing of pleuroses. Then Laura says marriage will not be possible because she is crippled. But Amanda refuses to allow Laura to use that word and insisted that Laura just needs to cultivate her charm.
After the fiasco of the business college, the idea of a gentleman caller for Laura becomes an obsession with Amanda. Tom and Amanda quarrel after she has sent back his library books without telling him. This results in a fight which ends with Tom leaving.
So Tom went home drunk and loses his case at the middle of the night, and he just went home from watching a movie. The next day, Laura went to him and begged him to apologize and make up for their mother. And then, she went outside. Tom speaks and apologizes to Amanda. Amanda gave him a few lessons and made him promise not to become a drunkard. Amanda asked him how he feels about his life in their apartment and shared how Laura feels toward him. Amanda started talking about Laura's attitude and future. She also promised to Tom that he can leave the house if Laura got herself a husband. Amanda asked him to find Laura a gentleman caller.
The Glass Menagerie Scene 5. Amanda is giving instructions to Tom about his smoking. Tom narrates about Paradise Dance Hall. Amanda and Tom made a wish upon seeing the moon. Tom tells Amanda that he got Laura a gentleman caller and was expected to visit and join them to dinner. Amanda was very excited upon hearing the news and wanted to make preparations for tomorrow. Amanda asked Tom about the name of the gentleman caller and his work and life. Tom, however, is much worried about Laura being different and peculiar woman. Amanda brushes it aside and called Laura and tell her about the guest.
In scene 6 of The Glass Menagerie, Tom provides background about Jim O'Connor, the gentleman caller. He explains that in high school, where they were classmates, Jim was a clean-cut star with a memorable voice and plenty of ambition. Captain of this, president of that, lead performer in the school's light opera. He didn't live up to his lofty expectations, though. He currently works only as a clerk in the same warehouse as Tom. Still, he's genial and charismatic in his circle of coworkers. Tom says coworkers treat him more respectfully because Jim does, but Tom is useful to Jim as well, as someone who remembers his glory days in high school. Jim calls Tom Shakespeare because Tom writes poetry when work is slow. Tom knows Laura admired Jim during their high school years, but he has no idea how strongly she felt about him. And Jim has no idea that Tom even has a sister. The stage directions explain that Amanda has worked around the clock since Tom told her about the gentleman caller, making final alterations on Laura's dress before she outfits herself and makes a grand entrance in the same now yellowed gown she wore to a ball when she was a debutante some 25 years ago. After reflecting on her memories of those days filled with bows and bouquets of jonquils, she tells her daughter that their guest is Jim O'Connor. This news makes Laura physically ill, as this is the young man she had a crush on in high school, and she's self-conscious about her leg. She refuses to answer the door for Tom and Jim. Amanda mutters, "Why can't you and your brother be normal people?" Laura obeys her mother and opens the door, then rushes to the living room to play music. The two young men read the paper and go to the fire escape to smoke, while Amanda finishes preparing dinner. Jim tells Tom he's taking a public speaking course to help him become an executive in a company, and tries to convince Tom to join the class. Tom replies, "I'm tired of the movies, and am about to move." He shows Jim his Union of Merchant Seamen card and explains he paid his dues with the money for the electric bill. He doesn't care if the lights are turned off, because he'll be gone. Tom says, "Whenever I pick up a shoe at the warehouse, I shudder a little thinking how short life is and what I am doing." Amanda enters the room in her outdated, girlish dress, embarrassing her son and astonishing Jim. Tom checks on dinner, and Amanda calls Laura to the table. When she gets there, she's about to faint, so Tom helps her to the sofa where she can rest. At his mother's insistence, Tom says grace, and the dinner begins. The frayed ends of the family's conflicts are not so easily hidden by a veneer of socially acceptable behavior. Unable to accept her daughter for the person she is, Amanda puts powder puffs in Laura's bra and refuses to hear any complaints. She's like a woman possessed, as her dream is unfolding before her, and she wants nothing to spoil it.
Scene 7. The lights go out in the apartment, so Amanda lit a candle. Amanda realizes that Tom didn't pay the light bill, so as a consequence, she asked him to wash the dishes with her. Jim went out to Laura. They talked for a short time until Laura asked him if he still sings. Jim suddenly remembered that he met her. Jim tried to cheer up Laura and gave him an advice about being confident. Laura told Jim had her great interest glass collection, and she showed a unicorn glass menagerie. Jim asked Laura to dance with him, and so they did it. The unicorn fell and broke its horn. Then the two kissed. Jim confesses that he won't be able to give Laura a call, text her, or come again because he's already engaged. Jim accepted the invitation because his fiancée is out of town. Laura handed him her favorite menagerie, the unicorn, as a souvenir. Then he bid goodbye. Amanda finds out about Jim's engagement and confronted Tom about his inattentiveness and selfishness, then threw herself comforting Laura, who's in sorrow. From the fire escape of their apartment, Tom confessed everything about being fired from his job, not long after Jim's visit. From that day on, Tom left his family behind. Years later, though he traveled far, he finds that he is unable to leave behind guilty memories of Laura.
Of the three Wingfields, reality has by far the weakest grasp on Laura. The private world in which she lives is populated by glass animals, objects that, like Laura's inner life, are incredibly fanciful and dangerously delicate. Tom is capable of functioning in the real world, as we see in his holding down a job and talking to strangers. But in the end, he has no more motivation than Laura does to pursue professional success, romantic relationships, or even ordinary friendships, and he prefers to retreat into the fantasies provided by literature and movies and the stupor provided by drunkenness. Amanda's relationship to reality is the most complicated in the play. Unlike her children, she is partial to real-world values and longs for social and financial success. Yet, her attachment to these values is exactly what prevents her from perceiving numbers of truths about her life.
Symbolisms of the Glass Menagerie. Laura's Glass Menagerie. Laura's collection of glass animal figurines represents a number of facets of her personality. The menagerie also represents the imaginative world to which Laura devotes herself. A world that is colorful and enticing but based on fragile illusions. The Glass Unicorn. The glass unicorn in Laura's collection, significantly her favorite figure, represents her peculiarity.
Laura, too, is unusual, lonely, and ill-adapted to existence in the world in which she lives. The fate of the unicorn is also a smaller-scale version of her fate in Scene 7. The fire escape. The fire escape, a physical symbol, is used symbolically to represent various aspects of being trapped or as a method of escape. As Williams writes, the huge buildings are always burning with the slow and implacable fires to human desperation.
That's all for the Glass Menagerie. Thanks for watching!